Is that when you got involved with the Cornucopia project?
That's exactly when I got involved.
Because I think somewhere here we've got a report about
right,
that.
Dick and I co-authored an agenda for research in this area.
The work went on for what, about 3 years, didn't it?
Yes. At that point, I was about to take a sabbatic from Penn State University, and I found that the Rodales really wanted to support my work in that area. Dick Harwood said, "Well, what can we do to help you?" And I said, "I'm about to go on a sabbatic. It would be nice if I had some traveling money, because I would very much like to go out and visit as many commercial-scale organic farms as I can. I'd like to find out what's making them work, what's making them tick, what has motivated them to make that kind of transition."
Now we're talking what size farms?
I wanted to see a spectrum of sizes, but particularly with emphasis on the larger ones. I knew that it was possible with a lot of intensive labor input to produce a garden organically. I mean, I've done it. I did it in my backyard or front yard when I lived in Pennsylvania. But I knew that that was not a feasible way to feed the millions, hundreds of millions of people in this country and billions throughout the world. That we really had to have methods that would be suitable to large-scale farms, which are the real source of food and fiber in this country and elsewhere.
So what did you find?
Well, I found, much to my delight, that it can work. I found, for example, in 1982, I stumbled onto the Pavich grape operation. At that point, they were producing about 0.8% of the nation's fresh table grapes. I've continued to track them over the years, and now they're up to about 3 times that market share, about 2.5% of the nation's fresh table grapes.
That's considerable.
That's very considerable.
Where are they located?
Their primary operation is in the Central Valley of California, near Delano, but they've also spread out around Bakersfield and then into Phoenix. So they're in a different climatic zone. They're able to cover a wider range of the market. And they have, year after year, as I follow them, I find that their methods of production continue to evolve. I would write up an essay describing, here's how you produce grapes organically. And a year later, I would come back and talk with them, and I'd find out that manuscript is obsolete.
They tried something different.
They're doing something very differently. And I've also tracked the Lundberg rice operation, also very innovative, and Wayne Ferrari's tree fruit nut operation near Stockton, and a number of others around the country. And I found that there were commercial scale operations that were prospering using organic or near organic methods of production. I found that they were motivated usually by a desire to protect themselves and their consumers from pesticides, pesticide residues on the food, pesticide contact, direct contact in the case of farm workers. This was the primary motivating force. They were also constrained by the harsh realities of the marketplace, and that is that if you may come up with a method of farming that is ecologically pristine, but if you go bankrupt in the process, you haven't accomplished anything. And I really respected that perspective. Having grown up on a farm in Oregon, I know what it's like to not be able to pay your bills at the end of the year. So these farms really opened my eyes to the fact that it's not just a backyard garden phenomenon, also to the fact that the scientific community had not really tapped into the extremely rich possibilities, the hypotheses that could be generated by exposure to that kind of agriculture. Too often I found that the scientists were content to draw their hypotheses strictly from within their own profession's literature, which is, a lot of good reductionist research is done in that way. But good problem-solving research requires that you go out and find what the practitioners are doing. you examine it with a critical eye, and you ask, what is really happening here? I found very little of that going on. As I traveled from state to state during my sabbatic in 81, 82, I would encounter farmers who were doing things that the experts said could not be done. I saw farmers give me explanations of what was happening on their farms. When I would try these explanations on experts at various universities, they would just poo-poo the idea. This can't work.
Mm-hmm.
And yet with my very own eyes, I had seen it
Mm-hmm.
working. And I felt that there was a need to bring the two together,
Yes.
to bring the scientific community and that tremendously innovative, creative resource of the farmers somehow together.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a quest that began about late 70s, particularly in 1980, 81. After my sabbatic, then I spent my sabbatic living in California
Mm-hmm.
For personal reasons, and then moved back to Penn State and continued doing as much as I could in this area, but I really had no resources.
Mm-hmm.
I had an experimentation project and so forth, and during the time of budget austerity, you just did not have a lot of money to expand projects of that kind. And I got some grant money from here and there, and did various contracts which brought in money that I was then able to squirrel away and hire a research assistant and so forth. But it was, my whole effort was just kind of limping along.